Hey, good morning, friends. Today is Monday, May the 12th, 2025, and the time now is 7:32 a.m. So, friends, last week was a very eventful week, and several things happened last week throughout the world. Whether we are talking about in the United States, the situation between India and Pakistan, and so on, and things happening in Africa, Europe, and so on. Three things actually stood out. One being May 9th, which is the Victory Day in Russia, a very important sacred holiday in Russia which commemorates or which celebrates the defeat of Nazi Germany during World War II. Now, friends, preceding May 9th celebration in Russia, we saw the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, sending to Burkina Faso his private jet or plane and escort planes to pick up the president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, basically for his safety to attend the event in Russia. And also, we saw last week the election in the Vatican, in which a new pope was elected. The pope in this case was an American pope, or is an American pope. However, friends, today I want to talk specifically about the May 9th celebration in Russia. And I am going to provide a brief account or brief statement. And I want to just talk about the symbolism or some of the symbolisms that I observed as I watched the May 9th parade. However, friends, I'm going to rewatch the parade so I can be able to provide more account and more statements about the implication for Russia and the geopolitical implications. However, I am going to provide an account or brief statement on some of the specifics in terms of the symbolism that I observe. I have watched the May 9th parade, at least religiously, since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. I have been watching this parade. Now, I've watched the parade before that on YouTube, but following Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the fact that the invasion of Ukraine took place in February and the May of 2022 was supposed to be a Victory Day celebration or holiday in Russia. I think it brought many people to begin to focus on some of the symbolism of the event, the importance or significance of the event for Russia, and also the emotion and the psychological experience of the event. Now, friends, in terms of the May 9th event, the May 9th Victory Day celebration or parade 2025, it is very interesting that one important symbolism that I observed was the fact that many countries participated in the event. In this case, I'm talking about in the parade. This means, friends, that many countries sent their honor guards to Russia, Moscow, to participate in the event, the May 9th parade, one as a friendship gesture or as a support, or to basically affirm their collaboration or their diplomatic ties with Russia. However, it was very interesting that of the participants, okay, or the participating countries, about all of them have some form of historic ties with Russia in terms of the cultural and the military traditions with Russia. The Chinese sent their honor guards to participate in the parade in Russia. And these guys are very skilled. They are perfect when it comes to marching. They do their job quite well. If I'm not mistaken, friends, they probably, and I'm talking about the PLA honor guards of China, they are probably the most sophisticated or the most advanced honor guards in the world when it comes to parading, marching, drilling, however you want to say, whichever phrase you want to use. Now, friends, in terms of the parade itself, we saw about almost all, or if not, all of the Central Asian countries that used to be part of the Soviet Union, basically former Soviet Union countries, engaging or participating in the parade. Now, in terms of Eastern Europe, or let's say the farther west of slash Asia Europe, we saw Belarus took part in the parade. Now, Belarus and Russia have a very strong ties, and even the leader of Belarus did attended the event. Now, friends, in terms of the parade, aside from countries such as Belarus, the Central Asian countries that used to be part of the Soviet Union, they participate as well in the event, in the parade, as I've said a couple of seconds ago. And I'm talking in this case about Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and all of the Stan's countries. They did participate. Even Mongolia participated in the parade. And I feel that it was very interesting, but there was emotional, psychological, and also some form of historic connection that I was able to make as I watched the parade. And it seems that solidarity was formed or affirmed. However, friends, it also demonstrates to me that the world has changed significantly and we probably could be in for a very devastating future. It doesn't have to mean an all out hot war between or among the various world powers. But I feel like something very interesting is coming. Because watching the parade, watching these other countries participated, okay, and showing respect to Russia, it basically draw the lines, okay, in the sand of the world divides in terms of the new multilateralism or multipolar system that is happening in the world. Now, friends, recently the Chinese did celebrate their own form of Victory Day in China, one of the most important celebration or holiday in China. And there were countries, even Cuba, that participated in the parade, okay, in Beijing. Now, in terms of the parade in Russia, in Moscow, the symbolism and the similarity in which or by which the various militaries that participated in the parade paraded is very interesting. We can go back to history and basically state that Russia, to an extent, was like the big brother country to many of these Asian countries or Central Asian countries. Therefore, many of them can trace their diplomatic and or their military tradition in terms of marching and so on from Russia, the Soviet Union. So it was interesting when the stands, the countries, okay, that are stands, the Kyrgyzstans, the Kazakhstan, Mongolia, when they all march, it was similar to the Russians when Russians march, and also similar to the Chinese when the Chinese PLA honor guard march. So I do believe it sends some form of solidarity, okay, a reality of solidarity. Now, friends, in terms of solidarity, okay, and symbolism, many leaders attended Russia's Victory Day parade, May 9th, 2025. We are talking about the leader of Belarus, the leader of Venezuela, Maduro, did attended. The Chinese President Xi Jinping did attended. Leader of Vietnam, and so on. Also, there are other dignitaries that attended the event, and it was unique. However, the most polarizing or the most interesting but supporting figure, probably of now, current times, the president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, did attend the event. As I said earlier, Russia, okay, the president of Russia is said to have sent his private jet and escorted jets, okay, a plane to Burkina Faso to pick up Ibrahim Traore and escort him to Russia. It is also said that Traore actually was trying to catch a plane by himself, a private plane, to make it to Russia, but he was convinced not to do so. Allowed himself to be taken by the Russians was a good move because I do believe had he charter private plane to Russia, he probably would have died. He probably would have assassinated him. Basically means that that plane would have been shot or manipulated somehow while it is in the sky and basically crashed and killed him. The West has been trying to kill this guy for a long time now, and it is said that as of now, about 19 to 20 assassination on Ibrahim Traore has failed. And for Africans, Africans continue to pray that he lives longer because he's one of the giants of Africa who currently bringing hopes for Africa. May 9th parade, for those who have watched it throughout the world, it is an emotional, symbolic, psychological, historical event, okay, a sacred event for Russia. The Russians take it daily. As much as the United States and the West can claim through their media the victory over Nazi Germany, many, especially historians, would assert that or believe that the Russians did the hardest work in fighting the Nazis. The Russians lost about 26 to 27 million people in World War II fighting the Nazis. They were in the front line fighting the Nazis before the United States came into the war. The Russians gave their lives, their blood, their sweat, their tears to fight the Nazis. However, the West, led by the United States, will claim victory over the Nazis. And they've been very sophisticated in doing that, especially given the might of their media. Now, at the end of the event, the parade in Russia, the Victory Day parade of May 9th, 2025, the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, there was a line, very long line of all of the commanders that participated in the event. And we are talking in this case, the commanders in the Russian armed forces or in the Russian militaries, and also the commanders of the countries that participated in the parade. We are talking in this case, the commander of Mongolia, the commander of China or the PLA, the People's Liberation Army of China, and the commanders of other countries participated in the parade. They all lined up in straight military formation, and Vladimir Putin went in line and greeting all of them, and they all basically introduced themselves in a military fashion. I think it was very, very good, very emotional, very psychological. It was also very proper. I think, as an observer and as an African, I think it did solidify in the minds and hearts of many a deep-seated emotion and a support for Russia, the Russian blood, sweat, and tears of what is now May 9th, Victory Day of Russia 2025. And also the fact that Russia is in the process of fighting the West all by itself. Now, this I do believe, in terms of the emotional connection, psychological connection, the historical connection, I think it did solidify in the hearts and minds of many around the world a deep-seated support for Russia and the Russian people. Now, in terms of the event, another symbolism, as I mentioned earlier, was the presence of Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. Now, friends, the camera during the event kept zooming into Ibrahim Traore, kept basically showing him. It is very interesting to the point where, as the march continues, at one point, the Russian honor guard, as they march further, okay, forward with the Russian flag, Ibrahim Traore stood up and he saluted the flag as a military is supposed to. Now, I don't know, honestly, what the international military tradition is, but that was, I do believe, the highest level of support and respect. Ibrahim Traore went to Russia as a soldier during one of the most significant and historical or secret holiday in Russia. He went there in his military formation or uniform. He was flown to Russia by the private plane or jet of the Russian president and escorted by Russian military jet. At the event, he stood up as a military man, as a soldier, and then he saluted the Russian flag, basically showing respect to Russia and the Russian people. For that, I applaud Ibrahim Traore, and I think he continues to make Africa proud, to make Burkina Faso proud. And I hope and wish long life for him. And I hope that he succeed in his revolution in Burkina Faso, which is also an African and an African diasporic revolution. Now, in terms of May 9, I know, once again, it's no news as of now for many around the world who pays attention to what is happening in Russia in terms of Russian domestic and diplomatic or international relations, in terms of Russian geopolitical position in the world and the current situation in the world. Now, friends, please tell me what you think, and I really want to know what you think. But friends, I'm going to end here. I want to thank you for being a member of the Echoing Voice community, my friends. But most especially and most importantly, friends, I want to thank you a lot for watching the Echoing Voice. Peace.